I'm going to be at Emerald City Comic Con August 18th through the 21st in Seattle doing a panel about making comics as well as signing, and I would really love to see some of you guys there. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and today I want to discuss the ever-expanding army of carbon copy bland characters that we've seen popping up in anime lately. Now to be clear, there is nothing wrong with a simple character design. Not everyone has to look like they popped straight out of Danganronpa. For example, on paper, Komi from Komi Can't Communicate should be a very generic basic character design, but she's recognizable because of the art style, particularly the interestingly triangular shape language on her bangs. Unlike these boys, because I feel like if you change their outfit, you would not be able to tell them apart. So I'm taking 3 of these very similar looking protagonists and I'm going to try to redesign them based on details about their world and their story and personality so that they all look different by the end. We're starting with Toya Mochizuki, who is the protagonist of the light novel in anime In Another World with My Smartphone. Now, unfortunately for me, I had actually never seen a single episode of any of these shows that these characters were from. So what I did with all of these characters was I watched the first and last episode of the first season of the anime because I felt like that was the fastest way that I could get sort of a vibe check on the entire show. And I saw, where it started and where it ended. And boy, the shock between those 12 episodes was quite intense on almost all of these. The main things that stood out to me about Toya is, first of all, that he's very easygoing, he's very nice and altruistic, and that was actually a pleasant aspect of his personality. It's also nice that he did have a personality. Now, he is this pretty stereotypical, nice, easygoing guy, but believe it or not, in this genre of anime, even having that much going for him seems like kind of a good thing. Because they're usually just very reacting to their world and they don't have unusual reactions. They act as the audience would, whereas upon being told that he's been killed and will never be able to go back to his original world, he's just very calm and he takes it in stride. And I feel like this anime is definitely a comedy approach to the isekai, trapped in another world genre. He literally has God on speed dial, and the only thing he asks for when he's given a final request is that he gets to keep his phone. So yeah, the thing is, he was killed by a stray bolt of lightning that God had been throwing around apparently, and it was a mistake. So the lightning bolt was actually my key entry point into how to make his character more interesting visually and more unique from the other boys in this trio. So I immediately knew I wanted to do this type of burn pattern that can happen when you're actually struck by lightning. Here's a picture of what it actually looks like. I obviously made it quite a bit darker. I think it makes him look so cool. I'm one of those people who really loves characters with scars and any kind of imperfection or whatever. I feel like it makes them so much more interesting and memorable. I also try to lean into more of his accent color of gold. He has a tiny little bit of gold on his original design, and I read in the wiki, I didn't see this in the anime that I watched, that he gets gold eyes at some point in his celestial mode. So I decided to go with that and continue on with his sort of asymmetrical design by giving him heterochromia with a gold eye. And I did more singeing on his jacket. It's obviously fashionable singeing that's not realistic, but I think that it gives him that he's been burned by lightning kind of energy a bit more. And then I also gave him a necklace with 9 rings on it because well, the first episode started with him being apologized to by God and being given his smartphone in order to join a new world. The last episode is basically just all of the girl characters begging him to marry them and begging him for affection, and they're I don't care if you marry all the other girls, you can marry all of us. And I looked it up on the wiki and he does he has 9 wives by the end of it. Next up is one of the most famous protagonists of the isekai genre, and that is Kirito from Sword Art Online. Most people, even people who aren't really into anime, have probably at least heard of Sword Art Online, and a lot of people think that it invented this genre, though it really didn't. I mean, there's manga and anime Dot Hack and Log Horizon. There's been a lot of concepts of being inside a game and that kind of stuff, which is the concept of Sword Art Online. The basic premise is that these characters join an online game where you're in a very fancy VR kind of scenario, and it turns out that if you take off the VR headset while you're playing Sword Art Online without officially logging out. That'll like fry your brain and kill you. And if you die in the game, you die for real. So, you know, all these characters end up getting stuck inside this game because it turns out that this game is actually like part of an evil plot to control everybody in the game. And yeah, so Kirito has to beat the game before he will be allowed back into society, and then his love interest Asuna is still stuck there. So that is sort of like the premise of the first season. Kirito is often criticized in the anime community for being incredibly bland, and his character design, I would say, also kind of plays into that. I think that, like, if you just look at his head, he just looks incredibly generic. Like, it's actually kind of amazing how much he looks like so many other anime characters. And I think it's a lot to do with the hair, and I think it's also like a lot to do with his face. His outfit, I would say, is also like, it really reminds me too much of other like aesthetics from other things. Like, particularly, it kind of reminds me of the Organization 13 cloak from Kingdom Hearts, if that makes any sense. Like the silver and black kind of reminds me of that. And I think it's interesting that like it's a big deal that he can hold two swords. That's a special ability he has. But when you see him, it usually looks like he only has one, just from like his silhouette, which I think is like kind of a waste. So because he's a relatively subdued character, and because it seems like the all black thing is really important, I decided not to give him like a special pop of color or anything, and I tried to go with kind of more of like this very subdued, almost like streetwear, tech wear kind of look. I thought it would be cool to like pull actually back detail away from him. Like, this is actually like an even simpler outfit, you know, it doesn't have all this like silver piping and everything. It's basically just like a black t-shirt and an open unzipped hoodie, black jeans, and then the two crossing straps of the two like sword holsters that he has. And I tried to make his face look, I wanted him to look a little bit more depressed, a little more sickly. I gave him sort of like longer, greasier hair because it seems like he is like clinically depressed at the start of this show. Like his main thing is that he's an isolated gamer who like doesn't really feel good being out in the world, and so I wanted to give more of that impression in the character of his actual face. This next one was a real challenge for me, and I don't know if I would have picked him initially if I had realized what kind of anime he was from. Like, low-key, I actually didn't have a hard time watching Another World with my cell phone or SAO that much, especially because I knew I was just watching 2 episodes, but this one was a struggle to watch both the first and the last episodes for wildly different reasons. And I really don't like this character, though I do think that he has more that's noticeable about him than Kirito does, so that's beneficial, I guess. So his name is Sato Pendragon, and he's a character from the anime Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody. And this anime is about Sato, who's a 29-year-old junior programmer, and he basically is in crunch time at his programming job. He makes games. He goes to sleep under his desk, and when he wakes up, he is in another world, and the world he's in is the game that he was making. When he wakes up in another world, he looks like his 15-year-old self, which, as far as I can tell, it doesn't have any purpose. Like, it's never relevant to the story that he's basically a 30-year-old in the body of a 15-year-old. I feel like they only did that for aesthetic purposes, so I'm going to age him back up, because personally, I feel like him looking 15 is completely irrelevant to the actual, prompt of who this character is, and I feel like they only did that to make it seem less creepy that the characters he hangs out with for the rest of the series, their average age is 12, this anime is just very bizarre. There's a lot of him saving girl characters from being slaves, but the way he does it is by buying them, and then they still do stuff for him and call him master. So I'm like, did you save them or did you purchase them? Are you just participating in slavery? Anyway, one of the main things that I did other than age him up was I gave him a signature color. Again, kind of like I was playing with Toya, I actually went way harder, and I also gave him like this more retro styled, like RPG kind of look and outfit. This is mostly an homage to the characters in .hack, but just because I was looking up for research for this like older isekai kind of concepts, or like being trapped in a video game kind of concepts. And I just thought, like, man, these retro designs are so charming and so fun, and I thought that it would be kind of interesting to see this like scrubby, like work crunched 29-year-old in like this cutesy retro sort of style of RPG outfit. I feel like that fits more with the like weird implications of like someone like him actually being in the game. So that about wraps it up. Here are my versions, and then back into their old versions. I really like how they look with a little extra spice and a little extra like story detail on them, but again, this is not really a fixing video. I obviously have no power, nor do I wish to have any power to change these character designs. It's just for fun. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one. Huge thanks to my wonderful patrons, including Katsuki, Noose Milk, Strawberry Andromeda, Raven's Crow, Zocelot, Winterheart, Harold Bird, Jabber Dabber Doo, Teddy Spaghetti, Gender Was Stolen, For Spookable, it's Jamal, Kay, Rodrigo, Momilk, Kadaria, Deadly Nightshade Art, Astral Fox Art, Middle Z, Lily Alert, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Michael Lavali, Cutie Pie, Ruin Raincrow, Ice Cream Pal, Kola, Your Boy ST, JJ Jade, and of course, Lip 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 Lip.